as they've launched into their new careers or start making decisions about their packages as it relates to their 401ks or their IRAs. And so I'm really excited to bring you two experts in this area today. Jesica Ray, she's an advisor with Brighton Jones. And she graduated from Dickinson in 2014 with a bachelor's degree in law and policy. She was involved while she was on campus in Alpha Lambda Delta, Dickinson Law Society, community service, student senate, and missions and leadership. And so we're really thankful that she came to join us. We also have Maddie Glass, goes by Maddie Glass, and she is also an advisor with Brighton Jones. Graduated from Dickinson in 2018 with a degree in international business. She was involved in Kappa Alpha Theta while she was here, student investment group, Phonathon. She was Devil's Advocate, Relay for Life, and was part of the varsity squash team. So I just want to turn the microphone over to Maddie and Jesica and thank them again for joining us for this professional development webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie, so much. So welcome to the seminar on impact investing. We are excited to be here today to connect with the Dickinson community on how you can make an impact with your investments and if you can still have a positive effect in the world while still earning the market rate of return. As Annie mentioned, my name is Maddie Glass. I am class of 2018, and I have been in the financial planning field for about 2.5 years now. I was an international business major, and a big thing that I was a part of was the student investment group on campus. So I've always had an interest in investment management. I found Brighton Jones by connecting with Jesica through Alumni Fire my senior year. So Dickinson has always prided itself on having a strong alumni network to learn about job opportunities, and I am a true living example of it. If you're looking for any opportunities in the financial planning industry, we're hiring in many of our offices across the country. So I'm here with my colleague Jesica Ray today.
Hey everyone. Thanks, Maddie, for the intro, and Annie, we're happy to participate in this webinar series. So just quick background, Annie touched on it briefly, but I majored in law and policy with a minor in economics. I've been in the investments world for about 7 years now and got my first job at Cambridge Associates through on-campus recruiting at Dickinson. After a couple of years, I switched over to Brighton Jones, which is a wealth management firm that focuses on comprehensive wealth advising. One of Brighton Jones's key missions is to give back to our greater community by means of financial literacy. So Maddie and I jumped at the opportunity to blend our passion for financial literacy with our alma mater and Dickinson's focus on social responsibility.
Awesome. So before we get started, Annie, thank you again for allowing us to present on this topic to the group. As Dickinsonians, we have already committed to the ideology of working to create a world that is socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. And I hope through this seminar, you can learn how you can extend that thinking in your investments. If you have any questions during the presentation, you can submit them in the chat below and we'll answer them at the end. If you have any questions specific to your situation, you can either contact Jesica or myself directly and we can help you in any way we can. The webinar is going to be recorded and sent out at the end of the sessions, and our emails will be located on the last page of the presentation. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any lingering questions or want to have a separate discussion. So during today's conversation, we're really going to focus on what is impact investing, how to best select companies that fall within your investing values, how you as an investor can change and influence change in companies, finishing with a few key investment managers and examples in the industry. So to first start, let's discuss what is impact investing. It's an investment process that considers the environmental, social, and governance consequences of corporate policies and practices, both positive and negative, within the context of rigorous financial analysis. So it's a lot of words. What exactly does it mean? The true intention behind this investment philosophy is to generate positive, measurable social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. Investments are made in both emerging and developed markets and target a range of returns from below to at market rate. The growing impact in the investment market creates capital to address the world's most pressing problems in sectors such as energy, education, and healthcare, just to name a few. So when you think of investing, there are many ways that you can individually make an impact on the world and in your community through your investments. There are many differences in what funds will actually offer to investors, so it's important to be able to sort through what these companies align with your values to ensure you're making the intended impact with your investment. It can be difficult at times to sift through what we like to call the alphabet soup of impact investing. So a few that you probably most common see are ESG, environmental, social, governance. These are investments that seek long-term impact on society and the environment through governance. SRI, socially responsible investing. These investments focus on making an ethical change in the world. CSR, corporate social responsibility, and these are investments that focus on corporate citizenship to itself, stakeholders, and the public. So in all, these are companies that really operate ways to enhance society in the environment. So as you can see, there are many ways that you can focus your investments to better align with your values. But it's important to be able to identify which investment strategies align with your intended impact. Impact investing focuses on three main categories: environmental issues, social concerns, and governance practices. Investors choose to believe in and pick companies that subscribe to their views regarding environmental protection, human rights, and a sense of responsibility to consumers. So to break it down, under environmental issues, as an examples, investors may choose to invest in companies where waste and resource management are top of mind to combat climate change. To take it a step further, Dickinson College has committed to keep sustainability at the forefront and be a leader in this initiative. They do a really great job at instilling these values in their students and community and identifying ways to promote sustainability education through the farm we have off campus and including some of the food in our dining hall, and by achieving its goal of becoming carbon neutral in 2020, which is an amazing accomplishment. So when you decided to attend Dickinson, you chose to pick a college as an investor to do better in the world. Under social concerns, it really focuses on supporting companies who advance human rights and benefit communities. So as an example, an investor may choose not to invest in companies that manufacture, distribute, or promote cigarettes because of the overall negative effect on people's health. And lastly, governance practices really focuses on corporate social responsibility and the sense of duty to positively serve the society as a whole. Governance is very directly connected to the environmental and social factors. So as an example, a pharmaceutical company, if it's seeking to find a treatment for a disease, it has a clear innate social good. But if the company doesn't have a strong oversight of its safety procedures, you can do more harm than good, which ultimately trickles down to the shareholders. So my junior year at Dickinson, I took a class with Professor Riccio in the INBM department on business ethics. And a lot of the topics we debated directly correlated with how to determine if these companies are maintaining their social responsibility. And when I think back, I can tie a lot of the courses that I took at Dickinson and how it relates to environmental or social sustainability. So through the curriculum that they have set up, you have already been prepared on how to shape your impact investment philosophy and how to evaluate these companies. So now that you have a better idea of what impact investing is, what can you do to determine how to screen the best candidates? A great resource is the MSCI ESG rating. This is a group that aims to measure a company's resilience to long-term financial related ESG risks. They focus on three main investor objectives or motivations: integration, values, and impact on the community. They have rated over 14,000 companies, but have provided 2,800 public ratings to the public. MSCI extensively screens for each key issues under each business-related practice that they are factored into the rating under environmental, social, and governance, as you see broken out on the screen here. So really the main goal of this group is to offer decision support tools to help investors improve portfolio performance, reduce exposure to unintended risk, and to construct efficient ways to integrate sustainable investing strategies.
Thanks, Maddie. Now that we better understand the what behind impact investing, let's move on to the how. Evaluations of corporate business practices are commonly performed to determine the social and environmental impacts that they actually have. That's what actually helps investment managers evaluate how sustainable they are as a business. There are two primary ways to structure an impact portfolio: positive and negative screens, as you can see on the screen. Screening is the process of selecting companies to invest in based on their ESG criteria that Maddie just walked you through. Rewinding back a couple decades, the original focus of socially responsible investments was to avoid investing in companies that were engaged in undesirable activities like alcohol, gambling, and weapons manufacturing. These are now known as negative screens, and I like to think of these kind of as opt-out programs. And over time, these opt-out programs or negative screens evolved to actively start to favor companies that had a strong record of ESG policies. Those are known as positive screens and more like opt-in programs where the investor actively is seeking out companies with desirable characteristics to add something good or positive to the world around them. Portfolios with negative screens are more diversified because their qualifications are less strict. With greater investment options, negative screens have a low overall tracking error to the market. Portfolios with positive screens, on the other hand, are exclusive and less diversified. That means that these funds tend to have a higher tracking error to the market. The widely accepted view here is to use a combination of both methods so you get the best of both worlds. And doing this leads to the most well-rounded screening process. There's really no right answer on how to be socially conscious or how to have the best set of socially responsible investments. The key, in our opinion, is to remember that the goal of these investments is to do good for the world while creating a measurable impact and achieving market-like returns. Most experts in the field would argue that the true power of social responsible investments is shareholder engagement. Shareholders can attempt to positively influence corporate behavior by means of the cooperative efforts of social investors. The belief is that investors can prod management to steer a more responsible outcome. The primary way that they do this is proxy voting, shareholder resolutions, congressional testimony, and letter writing campaigns. The largest 500 corporations in the world employ more than 43 million people and influence hundreds of millions of workers that are in their supply chains. Collectively, they sell products and services worth over $22 trillion and control assets valued at over $100 trillion. We want people to know that even as just one investor, influencing the corporate sustainability policies of these companies can have far-reaching global impact on the environment and society. So on the screen, you'll see some leading investment managers in the SRI space. These companies offer accessible investment solutions that are aligned with the impact investing philosophy. We'll walk through a couple of these just to get you familiarized with how the shareholder resolutions really make an impact. So on the bottom right, you see Calvert. Calvert tends to engage in constructive direct dialogue with senior management to strive towards the shared goals. One of their key missions is to fight climate change, which I'm sure as Dickinsonians, many of you can relate to. A couple years ago, Calvert engaged Walmart on its positions in firearm sales following a shooting a couple years ago at one of its stores. While firearms obviously is widely contested and people have different feelings on it, there's pieces of social responsibility that you may or may not be aligned with, and that's specific to a certain person. In this case, Calvert used its influence to do the following. 1, they argued for stronger gun safety regulations. 2, they shared best practices and technology with smaller retailers to influence compliance in existing laws. They also requested that customers not openly carry firearms in their stores, even if the states had open carry laws. And they also were able to stop sales of ammunition for handguns and assault weapons. This was all done primarily through active engagement between leadership at Walmart and the leaders at Calvert. In the middle of the screen, you'll see Pax World. Pax is known well for social engagement and investing in women. One of their key focus areas is engagement to close on the gender pay gap. Back in 2019, Pax World Funds created a formal shareholder proposal that asked T-Mobile to prepare a report about the steps they were taking to foster greater gender diversity on the board. T-Mobile responded immediately and recognized that its public disclosure did not reflect its practices. So they went ahead and published a director selection guideline on their website, so it was more accessible to everyone at the company. It committed T-Mobile to include women and minority candidates in the pool from which the nominating committees were selecting the actual director candidates. Notably, the dialogue expanded to include discussion for greater diversity and inclusion efforts across T-Mobile. On the top left, you'll see TIA. That might be a name many of you are already familiar with, as they are a leader in a lot of 403B and retirement plans. But TIA most notably uses influence to help companies innovate and operate more effectively. In 2019, TIA engaged 105 US companies to include a female director to their board by the end of the 2019 proxy voting season. Lo and behold, over 30% of the companies actually engaged a female director, all through the work of TIA and other companies like it. As you can see from these examples, the extent of a corporate influence on society is increasingly recognized, along with the connection between a firm's commitment to environmental, social, and governance practices. And we've seen a loose correlation between those things and long-term financial success. A vigorous shareholder engagement program, in our opinion, is the key tool investors can use to improve corporate behaviors while enhancing investment value and contributing to a more sustainable and equitable world. To wrap up, impact investing focuses on what John Elkington coined in 1994 as the triple bottom line. He said that he was looking for a result that was, one, good for the people, social responsibility, good for the planet, environmental responsibility, and good for profit, or the economic strength of businesses around the world.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. So we had a few questions in the chat that I think would be really great to have a discussion about. So the first is, what is the difference in manager expenses between standard and impact portfolios? Jess, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So it really depends on the investment managers you're looking at. The companies that the investment managers that we showed you on the prior slide are known well for having mutual funds, which are low cost, that incorporate an impact investing philosophy amongst them. Generally speaking, if you were going to compare socially responsible managers to managers that have had a longer time horizon to develop, like Vanguard, you'll see that they're slightly more expensive in terms of internal expenses, but overall they're comparable, and a lot of times people who are looking to get involved in socially responsible investments are willing to take a little bit of a higher internal cost for the overall impact on the world.
Awesome, thank you. Another question that came through are there any investment offerings that include strategies that target specific issues such as renewable energy? And so a really great question of, obviously, some people want to be able to target a specific issue that's important to them. And the unfortunate news is sometimes there really isn't. So a way to get around this is by working with fund managers to build a portfolio of specific individual stocks that are targeted towards your specific issues, such as renewable energy, that act as a mutual fund. And so this is an alternative way to be able to get specific exposure to this industry. If there are any other remaining questions that you guys have, please put them in the chat. If you can't think of any right now, you can definitely follow up with us. Our emails are on the screen. We're more than happy to have another discussion with you or answer any remaining questions. We love giving financial education, and it's super important to us to still engage with the Dickinson community.
Maddie and I will stay on for a couple minutes just in case something comes in. Oh, there's one more. Do retirement plans have impact options? Really good question. So Maddie and I vet retirement plan investment options often, and we've seen over the last couple of years that companies are starting to incorporate socially responsible investments as part of the 401k lineups. Usually 401ks have a limited set of investment options that are available to start with. So it's really cool to see companies start to engage in bringing social responsible investments into their retirement plan choices, especially with 401ks being primary drivers of savings for many individuals.
Oh, here's another one, Jess. What recommendations do you have for moving away from an extractive investment options?
Yeah, great question. So if you think about a portfolio, you have taxable accounts. So you're like a brokerage account, and you have your retirement plans. In your retirement plans, you have no tax consequences from selling out of your investments. So you can make the shift whenever you're ready and comfortable to make that shift without any adverse tax consequences to doing so. If you have a brokerage account or what we call taxable accounts, you have to be mindful of the gains in the portfolio to kind of ease in if you want, or just take the gains up front to get into the socially responsible investment. What I would suggest is take a look at what the actual tax consequences associated are, but don't let the tax consequences drive your internal philosophy. So if your goal is to be socially responsible, we know that markets will trend upward over longer periods of time. So we would suggest moving into that initially.
Awesome. Another question came through in the chat. Can you please give a high-level difference between a 401k and a Roth IRA?
We can answer that after the meeting. It's not socially responsible related, but we can talk about that at the offline. Sarah, we can connect. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today, and we're happy that we were able to share more about socially responsible investing with our Dickinson community.
Yeah, we want to thank, it looks like you had a few other questions come in. Do you want to answer those now, or do you want to answer those offline? Or just as you were saying goodbye, 2 more things came in.
Sure, we can answer them. We have time.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. So the next question is, what are the expectations for ESG over the near term and long term, and how do stakeholders play versus shareholder?
So ESG is still a relatively new concept. So we try our best not to predict the future of where it's headed. There's a lot of research and thought leadership around investors in general will lean towards socially good investments so that that it'll drive away from companies that aren't adopting the MSCI standards. And ultimately, the impact managers might actually end up outperforming standard market indices. So there's a lot of research around it, but there's no for sure understanding of what the long-term of impact investing looks like. Ultimately, our belief is that you can achieve returns similar to that of a non-ESG portfolio, and you're just taking a level of risk by not including things that don't fall within the environmental, social, and governance pillars.
Mm-hmm. Another question that came through is investing in federally designed opportunity zones considered impact investing?
I don't know the answer to that. I know there was a lot of talk of opportunity zones when the new tax laws came out. And of course, you can argue that they are socially responsible because you're contributing to communities that are in need of help. I don't know if they're federally considered socially responsible investments through the ratings criterias.
Mm-hmm. And something else that came through is, do you know if MSCI can be hired to rate/audit a private company? I'm not aware of it for specifically private companies. I know public companies, but this is something that we can follow back up on.
All right, well, great. It looks like you cleared most of the questions, and all the questions that are more individualized, I'll be sending to the panelists so that they can respond to you. But we really want to thank Maddie and Jessica for coming on. There was a question about emailing the recording of this presentation. So if you did come today and registered for this program, you will receive a recording of the presentation. So thank you again, Jessica and Maddie. And They provided their emails there for you to follow up with them. So thank you so much for being such great alumni and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Annie.
Annie.
Have a great day, everyone.